Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking a trip to a place that sounds like it should be the happiest spot on Earth.
What? Let me guess. It's not.
No.
Yeah.
Let's just rip the Band-Aid off right now. Just absolutely not. We're wading into some pretty murky, but also beautiful and surprisingly funny waters today.
Yeah, it rarely is a paradise with names like that. I mean, usually the prettier the name, the darker the reality.
Exactly. So we're heading to a town in Connecticut called Gladness. Or, well, more accurately, East Gladness.
Right.
I want you to imagine a place where the main industry is shade tobacco, which already sounds ominous, frankly.
It really does.
And the river there is described as a morgue of dreams. The only things that actually stop in this town are freight trains and ghosts.
And right from the jump, the setting in this text is just incredibly tactile. It's not just a backdrop for the characters. East Gladness really feels like a character itself, a very grumpy, dying character.
It does. So today's deep dive is into The Emperor of Gladness, which is a novel by Ocean Vuong.
A fantastic read.
Truly. And we are going to be laser focused on the opening chapters today. Specifically, we're looking at the collision of two very lost souls. You have Hai, who is this 19-year-old wrestling with addiction and just a total sense of failure.
Right.
And then Grazina, an 82-year-old woman who is wrestling with dementia and all these heavy ghosts of her past.
And what we're really unpacking here is a mission of survival. The core question for us today is, how do two people who are essentially at the end of their ropes, one very young, one quite old, find this strange improvised way to knot those ropes together and just
hang there?
Yeah, just hang there.
Or at least hang there comfortably enough to watch some TV.
Precisely. It's all about the comfort found in the deeply uncomfortable.
So let's unpack this setting first, because East Gladness is wow. The text paints this vivid picture of a town completely bypassed by the modern world.
Completely left behind.
Yeah. It was originally just called Gladness, and they changed it to East Millsap for a hot second to honor some war hero. But mostly it's just known as a place people leave.
And the description Vuong uses is so visceral. He writes that the town is raised up from a scab of land along the Connecticut River.
A scab?
Yeah. That word scab immediately tells you everything you need to know. Because a scab is technically a form of healing, sure, but it's also dead tissue.
Right. It implies an injury that hasn't quite resolved yet.
Exactly. It's ugly, it's protective, and it's highly fragile. If you pick at it, it bleeds again.
And the details of this scab are just wild. You've got potholes so deep that minnows swim in them after it rains.
I love that image.
That image alone, fish swimming in street potholes, it suggests the river is just slowly reclothing the town.
It's nature erasing the human map, bit by bit.
Then you have these abandoned sugar shacks where the signs have been rubbed to braille by wind.
That is such a poignant image. If the wind is turning signs into braille, it really suggests that the history of the town is becoming something you have to feel to understand rather than something you can just casually read.
Wow.
It's fading away. You have this pervasive sense of decay, but it's very specific. It's not generic movie set ruin.
Right. It's lived in ruin, like the bird feeder. The text mentions a bird feeder shaped like Bill Clinton's head spilling seeds out like applause.
Yeah.
It's funny, obviously, but also dates the decay. It's this relic of the 90s just rotting away on someone's front porch.
It perfectly captures that mix of poverty and resilience. You've got the mailbox made out of a milk crate and an old tire. It's resourceful, but it's also born of desperation.
Definitely.
And the vibe isn't just about the physical decay, it's about the people. The text says, "We live on the edges but die in the heart of the state."
That line really stuck with me. It just perfectly captures the marginalization of this community.
They are the blur in the windows of the trains passing through to Boston or New York. No one stops in East Gladness unless they absolutely have to. And I think that sets up the central theme of ghosts perfectly.
Because in this book, ghosts aren't just supernatural entities haunting a creepy house.
No, they aren't rattling chains in the attic or saying boo.
Right.
They are the economic and personal ghosts of a town that prosperity completely forgot. The text says, winter begins by late September.
Which is brutally early.
It's a meteorological fact for New England, maybe, but metaphorically it means the cold, the end, comes early here. The ghosts are the names on the gravestones no one visits, the industries that packed up and left, and the people who are still there but feel totally invisible to the rest of the country.
Which brings us to our main character, Hai. He is definitely feeling invisible. Or, I mean, maybe he actively wishes he was.
He's trying very hard to erase himself.
Yeah. We meet Hai on King Philip's Bridge. It's September 2009. He's 19, he's wearing an oversized UPS jacket that definitely isn't his, and he's standing there fully intending to jump into the Connecticut River.
This is our inciting incident, and it's framed with such intense melancholy. He's looking down at the water, thinking about how he can just slip into it and disappear. The text mentions he's in the midnight of his childhood and a lifetime from first light.
That is a heavy, heavy line. It positions him in this terrible limbo state. But then, in true Ocean Vuong fashion, the sublime grand tragedy gets interrupted by the utterly ridiculous.
Which is so true to life.
It really is. So Hai looks down into the water and thinks he sees a corpse floating there.
Which would be a terrible omen if you're standing on a bridge contemplating your own death.
Right. He's absolutely terrified. He's clinging to the railing. His heart is pounding out of his chest. And then he looks closer and realizes it's a bed sheet.
The bed sheet.
It's just someone's laundry floating down the river.
And that's the pivot point right there. The terrifying ghost is just a mundane household object. And then comes the actual intervention. It's not a choir of angels singing from the heavens.
Nope. It's an old woman yelling at him from the muddy riverbank.
Grazina, she's down there dealing with her laundry line in the middle of a storm, and she spots him up there. And her first concern isn't saving his immortal soul.
Not at all.
Her main concern is that he's interrupting her chores.
It's grounded in such hilarious pragmatism. She yells up at him, "You can't die in front of my house! I don't need any more spirits around here!"
It's so dismissive of his grand poetic tragedy. It forces him right out of his suicidal ideation because now he has to deal with this annoyed, soaking wet neighbor.
It's comedy as a survival mechanism. Hai is so embarrassed to be caught essentially mid-jump. He tries to convince her he's up there inspecting the bridge for engineering purposes.
A 19-year-old kid in a stolen, oversized UPS jacket, inspecting a bridge in the pouring rain.
It is a terrible lie.
The absolute worst. But it works just enough to get him to climb down. He ends up following her into her house, which the text describes as a cave filled with ceramic owl figurines everywhere.
Just everything.
And this is where we get the bread crushing ritual.
Yes, this scene is fascinating. So they have this initial kind of Abbott and Costello misunderstanding. He tells her his name is Hai, H-A-I. She hears it as hi, like the greeting.
The classic Who's on First routine.
Exactly. So she decides his name is Labas, which is Lithuanian for hello.
Right.
And she introduces herself as Grazina, which means beautiful. So from the very start, their relationship is built on this weird translation, this renaming. They are giving each other entirely new identities.
They really are. And then she takes him out to the muddy backyard to show him what she calls the secret to sorrow.
And I was fully expecting some deep ancient wisdom here, or maybe a quiet prayer. But no, she hands him a plastic bag of dinner rolls and tells him to stomp on them in the mud.
It seems totally absurd on the surface.
Right.
Yeah, but if you look at the context she provides, it's brilliant. She explains to him that back in Lithuania during the war, bread was incredibly precious.
Right.
She talks about eating moldy bread, green bread that tasted like gasoline. That was survival. That was what kept you alive.
So wasting it now
Intentionally.
is the ultimate act of freedom. She says to him, we can crush them anytime we like and no one can punish us.
Wow.
It's a physical rebellion against the extreme scarcity that defined her past. By violently destroying the very symbol of survival, she proves to herself that she's actually survived. And it works for Hai. He really gets into it. They're both out there stomping on these dinner rolls, making a powdery comet of crumbs in the mud. And for the first time in a long time, he feels beautiful. He feels Grazina.
It's like a bizarre baptism in mud and carbs.
That's exactly what it is.
It completely breaks the cycle of his despair. He ends up moving in with her, and that kicks off segment 2, Life at 16 Hubbard Street.
And this house sounds, well, intense is the word. It's basically actively falling into the river. And inside you have this truly odd couple. A 19-year-old drug addict in early recovery and an 82-year-old widow with frontal lobe dementia.
It's a recipe for a disaster, or a sitcom, or a profound tragedy. And Vuong somehow manages to blend all three perfectly. Hai essentially becomes her full-time caregiver. His main job every morning is to manage her vitamins.
Which is a very nice, very gentle euphemism for a literal trough of heavy pharmaceuticals.
Aricept, Namenda, gabapentin. It really grounds the story and highlights the harsh medical reality of her condition. It's not just quirky forgetfulness.
No, it's a serious decline. But their daily routine together is strangely cozy despite all that. They watch The Price is Right every day, and Grazina lists off the furniture prices out loud like she's praying the rosary.
And she thinks The Office is the local news.
Yes, she's watching Michael Scott and asking Hi when they're going to show the weather report.
You know, that detail about The Office is actually quite profound if you think about the documentary style of that show.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, to a mind that is actively losing its grip on context and narrative structure, the shaky camera work, the fluorescent lighting, the talking head interviews, that all looks exactly like reality TV or a local news broadcast. It shows how her perception of reality is subtly shifting.
That makes so much sense, because her mind is described as an Etch-a-Sketch. Just a little shake and the whole picture is gone. She hallucinates guests arriving from Schenectady, or she cooks these massive industrial amounts of cabbage for her daughter, Lena.
A daughter who never actually comes to visit. That's the real heartbreak of the situation. The dementia acts as a very literal form of time travel for her. She's not just forgetting things, she's actively being transported back to different eras of her life. And this connects deeply to the legacy of her late husband, Jonas.
Jonas sounds like a fascinating character in his own right, even though he's gone. He was a massive hoarder. The basement is just packed to the ceiling with random stuff, a random front door, an old rocking horse. But amidst all that junk, Hi finds a secret room.
The library.
Right, paper gold, the text calls it. It's filled with these incredible classics: Hemingway, Steinbeck, Faulkner, James Baldwin. And it turns out Jonas, before he died, was trying to translate Slaughterhouse-Five into Lithuanian.
Now, this is a crucial intertextual link that the author drops in. Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five is famously about Billy Pilgrim, a man who becomes unstuck in time due to the extreme trauma of surviving the bombing of Dresden in World War II.
And Grazina is also a survivor of World War II.
Exactly. And her dementia has made her, quite literally, unstuck in time, just like Billy Pilgrim.
So Jonas was trying to translate their shared trauma through that specific book. He was trying to make sense of his wife's slipping mind.
Precisely. He was looking for a framework for what was happening to them. And now Hi, who is also unstuck in his own way due to his addiction and his massive sense of failure, finds solace down there in that room.
He starts reading The Brothers Karamazov down there, which is a book he was originally supposed to read with his best friend Noah, but Noah died.
So you have these profound layers of grief. Jonas's grief, Hi's grief, all being processed through this hidden literature in a rotting basement. It's incredibly moving. But, you know, we have to talk about the carrots.
Yes. We cannot forget the carrots. Grazina is absolutely obsessed with baby carrots. She genuinely believes they give you the will to live.
And honestly, her logic is kind of undeniable in a very poetic way. She explains that carrots grow in the pitch dark, completely underground, and yet they turn bright, vibrant orange.
They make their own light.
Exactly. They make their own light in the darkness. So she believes that when you eat them, you physically ingest that will to go upward, to push through the dirt.
She asks Hi, ever heard of a rabbit jumping off a bridge? That is her ironclad argument.
It's very humorous, but it's also her subtle way of trying to keep Hi alive. She knows where she found him. She forces him to sit and eat them before he does anything else. It's caretaking masked as eccentricity.
But speaking of caretaking, Hi needs money. Grazina's EBT card is running dangerously low. They can't survive on baby carrots and cabbage forever.
Right.
So in segment 3, we head to the glamorous, high-stakes world of home market.
The absurdity of home market. This entire section is just a biting, brilliant satire of the modern service industry.
Hi's cousin, Sony, gets him an interview there. And I use the word interview very loosely. The manager, BJ, basically just shines a light in his eyes to make sure his pupils look normal and he's not on heroin, and then gives him a 5-minute walking tour.
BJ is a phenomenal character. She treats this mediocre, fast, casual restaurant like it's a high-stakes military operation. She actually claims that Home Market provides Thanksgiving every day for people, but without the messy family drama.
She calls herself the Jesus of the operation. Or maybe the general. She kind of mixes her metaphors. And she's an aspiring professional wrestler.
Yes. She's constantly looking for her perfect entrance song. It's this deep, desperate ambition trapped in a place that is structurally designed to crush ambition. And the team she's assembled under her is this incredible motley crew of lost souls, very much like Hi.
Let's run down the roster because they're all so specific. First, you've got Sony, the cousin who got Hi the job. He is completely obsessed with the American Civil War, specifically General George McClellan.
Sony is a deeply tragic figure when you look closely. He has a very visible scar on his head from a brain surgery he had as an infant. And his family has constructed these completely dual myths about him.
Right. They either think he's a chosen one with a third eye,
or they just write him off entirely as a crackhead. There's no middle ground for him. He's so desperate for rigid structure, which is exactly why he loves military history so much and desperately wants to join the honor guard.
Then there's Wayne, the chicken man.
Yeah.
A large guy from North Carolina who takes immense, almost spiritual pride in running the rotisserie. He claims to look exactly like Al Green.
Wayne really represents the inherent dignity of labor, even in an environment that constantly degrades it. He treats those spinning chickens with absolute reverence.
And Maureen, who is this profane, chain-smoking grandmother figure running the cash register.
Yeah.
And Russia, this 18-year-old kid from Tajikistan with bright blue hair, who works at the drive-thru window and spends his time inventing chicken skin cornbread sandwiches.
Which honestly sounds kind of amazing.
I would absolutely eat that.
But really, they are a family, a highly dysfunctional minimum wage family. But the text creates this extremely sharp contrast between the humanity of the workers and the actual food they serve.
Oh, the food is industrial horror. They talk about kitchen freshness, but it actually just comes from boiling these massive vacuum-sealed plastic bags of slop in a giant cauldron.
Right, and then they use magic markers to write the employees' names on the little chalkboard signs.
Mashed potatoes made by Maureen.
Exactly. It's the handmade lie. It's entirely theatrical.
It's all just smoke and mirrors.
It is. And the text really leans into this as a critique of modern alienated consumption. The workers are essentially magicians. They're forced to turn industrial sludge into the feeling of home and comfort for these customers who are just too exhausted from their own jobs to cook.
It's incredibly ironic.
The irony is palpable. These workers can barely afford to keep a roof over their own heads, yet their entire job is selling the fantasy of a wholesome middle-class family dinner to strangers.
And the customers, of course, do not always appreciate the magic trick. Which brings us to the robot voice incident.
This is a really painful scene to read.
It is. So a tennis dad comes in, wealthy, privileged, wearing the gear. He comes in with his 2 young sons. And this man has an electronic voice box. He speaks through this robotic synthesizer.
And the kids start mocking Wayne, the chicken man. They literally call him Uncle Ben.
It's a blatant racial slur. And it cuts Wayne incredibly deep because, as we said, he is usually so proud and carries himself with such dignity.
But what's really fascinating here is BJ's reaction to the whole thing. As the manager, the general, she completely freezes. But not because she doesn't want to defend Wayne.
Right, it's the voice itself.
Exactly. The robotic voice completely throws her off her script. She feels like she's suddenly trapped in a bizarre Saturday Night Live skit, and she just paralyzes.
It perfectly highlights the dehumanization of service workers. The customer is literally physically robotic in his speech, but he and his kids treat the actual human beings, serving them like they're less than dirt.
And BJ, who sees herself as this tough wrestling general, is just paralyzed by the utter absurdity of the cruelty.
It really shows that even inside their little strange sanctuary of home market, the cruel realities of the outside world can just smash through the glass at any moment.
It's a very fragile bubble.
Which is actually a perfect segue to Hai's own outside world, or really his past. Segment 4 finally gives us the backstory we've been waiting for. We finally learned exactly why he was standing on that bridge.
We already knew about the addiction, the pills, and the opiates. But the specific crushing weight he's carrying around is what we can call the lie.
Capital T, capital L. To make his severely depressed mother happy, Hai lied and told her he got accepted into medical school in Boston.
And he didn't just tell a little white lie to buy himself some time. He constructed an entire elaborate alternate reality. He actually used a brochure for the Harvard Divinity School.
Which he only picked because it had a fancy bell tower on the cover that looked prestigious.
Exactly. He used a divinity school brochure to fake a medical school acceptance.
And the scene where he leaves for school is just heartbreaking. His mom is so thrilled. She packs him homemade coconut rice for the journey. She fully believes her son is going off to Boston to heal people. She is bursting with pride.
Because she is finding her own salvation in his imagined success. She is a woman who is deeply addicted to playing Tetris.
Oh, the Tetris detail is so good.
Right. Tetris is a game entirely about organizing falling, chaotic blocks. It's pure escapism. And now she genuinely thinks her son has perfectly organized the falling blocks of his own life.
But the reality is so dark. Instead of going to Boston, he hides out of sight in the back of the taxi so he doesn't have to look at her waving goodbye on the curb. And he goes straight to New Hope Rehab.
Which is located inside a burnt-down elementary school. I mean, the symbolism Vuong uses there is incredibly heavy. It's a place of childhood learning and growth that has been literally scorched and gutted.
And life in this rehab is just described as intensely boring. The rooms are all bizarrely named after types of squash. He's assigned to the kabocha room.
It perfectly captures the sheer banality of institutional recovery. But the most crushing moment of this whole sequence is the phone call.
Oh, man. The phone call.
He calls his mom from the payphone at the rehab center, but he pretends he's calling from the medical school campus in Boston. He looks out the window and describes doctors playing frisbee on the quad.
But it's actually just the other rehab patients throwing a plastic plate around in the dirt yard.
This creates such a devastating dual reality. There is the brutal truth of his daily struggle, and then there's the beautiful fiction of his success that he maintains just to keep his mother emotionally alive.
That's a lot.
It is. The expert insight to pull from this is really about the immense, sometimes fatal pressure placed on the children of immigrants and refugees. Hai's lie is, at its core, an act of profound love. He desperately wants to save her from the disappointment of his actual reality.
But it's a crushing burden to carry. He is carrying all of her hope, all of her deferred dreams, on a back that is already breaking under the weight of his own addiction.
It's exactly why the bridge seemed like a viable option to him. The suffocating weight of maintaining that lie was suddenly much heavier than the fear of death.
Right. But now, in the present, he has Grazina. He has the house. And in segment 5, we see how their very strange relationship culminates in this moment of shared delusion that is, paradoxically, the most honest and real connection in the entire book.
The Stuart Pepper incident, this is really the emotional climax of these opening chapters.
So it starts with fireworks. There are some teenagers partying across the river, shooting off bottle rockets in the middle of the night. But for Grazina, in the depths of her dementia, those pops and bangs aren't fireworks. It's artillery fire.
She wakes up completely terrified. She genuinely believes she is back in Lithuania in the middle of World War II. She thinks her brother, Christoph, is trapped somewhere under the rubble.
It's a full-blown panic.
Yeah.
And Hai tries to calm her down normally at first. He tries singing lullabies. He sings Silent Night. He sings old Vietnamese folk songs his grandmother taught him. But she's just way too far gone into the memory. Logic isn't going to work. Normal comfort isn't going to work.
So he improvises. And it's brilliant. He stops trying to forcefully pull her back to 2009. Instead, he decides to go back to 1944 with her. He adopts a persona. He becomes Estrit Pepper.
Which is so funny because he completely misremembers the name of a local pizza shop and assumes Estrit Pepper is a real military rank.
It's completely ridiculous, but he absolutely commits to the bit. He tells her, in his best authoritative voice, that they need to evacuate immediately to Gettysburg.
Because Gettysburg is literally the only war reference he has handy in his brain, thanks to Sony talking about the Civil War constantly at home market.
Exactly. He is furiously mixing the Beatles, a cheap pizza joint, the American Civil War, and World War II into this massive narrative soup. But Grazina buys it completely because emotionally it perfectly fits the sheer urgency and terror she feels.
And then he convinces her that the antique clawfoot bathtub in the bathroom is actually a military jeep.
This is such a stroke of genius on his part. The bathtub is physically safe, it's enclosed, it's solid, it's grounding. It feels like a vehicle if you hunker down in it.
And Grazina, preparing for the perilous journey, insists on bringing rations, which happen to be strawberry Pop-Tarts.
You really have to love the inclusion of the Pop-Tarts.
It's the best detail. So they sit together in this dry bathtub in the middle of the night. Hai pretends to steer the Jeep, driving them through the dark. And this is where the real magic happens. Grazina starts talking. And it's not the confused, looping rambling she usually does. These are real, crystal clear memories.
She talks about the bombing of Lake Rakiva. She describes this haunting image of hundreds of fish floating dead on the surface of the water after the blasts. It's a specific, localized horror from her childhood that she can finally express aloud because she believes she's sitting next to a fellow soldier who implicitly understands the trauma of war.
And Hai uses Sony's Civil War strategy, the famous fishhook defense, to reassure her. He maps it out and tells her they are perfectly safe in that formation from the Krauts and the Reds.
He is entirely validating her fear while simultaneously offering her ironclad protection within the architecture of her own delusion.
Wow.
And in doing that, he realizes he is connecting with her in the exact same way he used to play make-believe with his own grandmother. He finally feels a real sense of purpose. He isn't a failure in that bathroom. He is 6'8" Pepper in that moment. He is a protector.
They ride out the entire night sitting in that tub. By the time morning comes, the fireworks are stopped, and Grazina finally falls asleep right there against the porcelain.
And Hai performs this incredibly tender act of care. He carefully slides a soft pillow under her head. He takes the half-eaten strawberry Pop-Tart off her chest and gently drops it into the toilet so she doesn't roll onto it. He tucks her in with a quilt.
And then we did the discovery. He pulls back the shower curtain to let some light in, and he sees a small black and white photograph hidden there, taped to the tile.
Now, the source text we're analyzing cuts off right here, but the implication of finding that photo is huge. The photograph strongly suggests a real, tangible connection to the past he just visited with her in the tub. Perhaps it's a picture of Christoph, or the real war. It anchors their shared fantasy in actual documentary evidence.
It makes it real.
Yes.
So if we pull back and look at everything we've covered, we've got stomping on bread, we've got robotic voices at a chicken counter, we've got a bathtub jeep heading to Gettysburg. What does this all ultimately mean for these two characters?
It's entirely about salvation.
How so? Walk me through that.
Hai and Grazina, against all odds, manage to save each other. Grazina gives Hai a physical home, sure, but more importantly, she gives him a job as her caregiver. That responsibility gives him a concrete reason not to jump off that bridge the next day.
He's needed.
Exactly. He is needed. And in return, Hai gives Grazina profound safety in the middle of her worst terrors. He is willing to travel all the way to the Gettysburg of her fractured mind just so she doesn't have to be alone in the dark when the bombs fall.
That is beautiful. And the title of the book is The Emperor of Gladness. That refers back to the epigraph, right? Your worm is your only emperor.
Yes, that's a direct quote from Shakespeare's Hamlet. It's a meditation on mortality and the great equalizer of death. The full idea is we fatten up all other creatures just to feed ourselves, and we feed ourselves just to eventually fatten up the maggots in the ground.
Cheerful.
Very. But the thematic brilliance here is that amidst all this literal and metaphorical decay, the maggots, the rot, the rust of East gladness, there is still this strange, resilient form of gladness. Or at the very least, there is survival.
They are the emperors of this decaying little kingdom on Hubbard Street.
Exactly. They rule over the rubble.
I just really love the final image of the two of them huddled in that bathtub, a Jeep going to Gettysburg in a Connecticut bathroom. It completely transcends logic. It transcends linear time.
It's pure human connection. It's silly, it's utterly heartbreaking, and it's incredibly beautiful.
It really makes you want to go out and stomp on some dinner rolls right now, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, just maybe don't waste the really good sourdough from the bakery.
Fair enough. Use the cheap, stale stuff from the supermarket.
That's the real lesson here, honestly. Use the stale stuff, the broken stuff, the weird stuff that everyone else has thrown away or forgotten about, because that's usually where the gladness actually is.
That is beautifully said. It makes you wonder if maybe the ghosts of gladness aren't actually haunting the town at all. Maybe they're just protecting it from becoming another sanitized, soulless home market. Something to think about. Thanks so much for diving into this with us today.
Always a pleasure to be here.
And to you listening, find your own silly, improvised way to crush the bread rolls of life today. Look for the gladness in the decay. We will catch you on the next deep dive.